City Councilman Keith Powers wants to be the next Manhattan Borough President. So the first question out of the box is this: how would you put your stamp on that office?
Thank you for that, and thank you for having me. I do want to be borough president for Manhattan. It's the place I grew up, the place I lived my whole life, and a place I've been fighting for the last 8 years. I see the borough president's office as a way to look at the big problems that are facing the city and the borough.
So what are the big problems?
Number one is housing and the cost of living in this city. We know that New Yorkers are facing the struggle right now of affording to live in this city, and Manhattan is the epicenter of that issue. So I've been working on strategies in the city council to build more housing and to add the housing that we need right now.
The City of Yes.
City of Yes, Midtown South, we're doing a big rezoning right now to do office conversions, the first of its kind. And I've been a proud supporter to come out and say, let's do that, let's move that forward.
But let me just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you know, it seems that office conversions are a difficult thing because of all the different rules that come down from the state. Are you going to be able to cut some of the red tape so that you can move this forward? Because we all know there are a lot of empty office buildings in New York for a lot of reasons.
That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to cut the red tape. We're going to say yes to building more housing in a place like Midtown, which is a great place for opportunity in housing. And we're going to get a new project moving forward that will make sure that area can be 24/7. That's what I want to put into the borough president's office. Proactive nature to solve problems, to talk about the quality of life in our neighborhoods and the public safety issues that are facing the city, and actually take a proactive approach, because I think for too long we've been taking the reactive way. And when it talks about building housing, getting our government agencies to do a better job of picking up the trash or keeping our neighborhoods safe, this is an office that has such a great vantage point and a lot of power to do things to make the lives of New Yorkers much better.
But how do you want to deal with public safety? I know a lot of people in the city council, especially after the George Floyd protests, voted to defund the cops.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that. In fact, I think that we actually right now are seeing a lot of our police precincts need more staffing and more resources.
It's a crisis.
It's a crisis. Look, we have two parts of this equation. At the city level, we need to be making sure our precincts have the resources they need. I've been deploying foot patrols with the precincts in my district to places that are the hotspots. I think that's a good strategy. Get officers on the ground. We need steady leadership at the NYPD. I've recently said I think Jessica Tisch should continue to be our commissioner. I think she's doing a great job. And to have a proactive way to deploy the resources that we have. Now, the second part of that equation is in Albany, and making sure that this year in Albany, they actually take the approach to put public safety back into our neighborhoods. There are a couple of big ticket issues that are on the agenda, whether it's discovery reform, whether it's talking about the mental health crisis. They have to get to work. And I think New Yorkers are watching to make sure they get to work.
But if you listen to recent speeches by the police commissioner, basically what she says is Albany has, for lack of a better word, hogtied the hands of police officers with some of the things that they've done. You know, recidivism is at a high. People are going back on the streets because judges are letting them out, and that has to do with bail reform. Do you support changes to things like that? I
think Albany has to take action this year to make sure that we can put some different extra measures in place that will help make our neighborhoods safe. Talk about discovery reform. The most progressive and the most moderate district attorneys right now are asking for sensible changes that will still maintain the spirit of the law while also making it a lot easier for them to actually handle the cases.
But Carl Hastie and some of the other people in the Senate and the Assembly have expressed concerns about that, saying that that make it maybe easier for the cops, but not so much easier for the defendants.
I think there's a sensible way to do it, and I support it. And
what's a sensible way?
Sensible way is to ease some of the burden on the district attorneys that they're facing right now. There's some ways to also make sure there's better cooperation and information sharing between the agencies. Look, if we believe that we can do it and we start there, we will figure it out. But what we can't do is to start as a no and then decide that that is the final answer. If we have a spirit of trying to solve this problem, I feel firmly we can do it.
So I want to talk to you about congestion pricing. It's become, obviously, it's a big issue in Manhattan because congestion pricing is in Manhattan. So the initial reports are that traffic has been reduced and there's more pedestrian traffic, et cetera. Your take on it, but I think that there are some people, especially in Upper Manhattan, who are concerned about people who are parking in Upper Manhattan and coming into the congestion zone by public transportation. So I wondered, how do you feel about residential parking permits and the idea that people who live in there in those areas should have first dibs at parking?
Sure. Well, I'll talk about both. Number one is I think there is evidence that there was subway ridership was going up, traffic was going down, and there were some successes in there. And of course, there's always sensible changes we should be able to make to any single plan as it moves forward to make sure it meets the needs of people in the city that will occasionally need to rely on a vehicle. And I think there's ways as we move forward to do that. When it comes to Northern Manhattan, I talked to my colleagues up there, Councilmember De La Rosa, our Borough President Mark Levine. I know they've been talking about that, and I trust them. So if they're saying that the community needs that, I will certainly rely on them and trust on them to have a system where we might be able to look at some parking permits. And then we might want to look at how we do it in other places as well. We're sitting right here on the border of the congestion district, so I've always been concerned about exactly how parking will be handled on the periphery. But the one thing we have to look at right now is also moving people around this borough and city much faster. Right now, the MTA should be doing all the signal upgrades on the west side subway lines that would actually move people faster, and they're delayed on doing that. So
But you have to have money to fix the signals.
You do, but that project's underway, and they were supposed to do some of these signal upgrades this year. We should be calling all of us on them to upgrade that. We also could move buses faster. We could do more dedicated rapid bus transit in this city, in this borough. I've called on places in the borough to do it. We should be, as subway ridership goes up, leaning in on offering faster and more reliable public transportation.
How do you feel about free bus service?
I don't know if I support free bus service across the city. There might be instances like going to the airports or other places we might want to look for it. There might be certain lines we want to pilot, so I'd certainly be open to that. But what I want to make sure is it's fast and it's reliable.
One of the things that I find concerning as I drive around Manhattan is the large number of storefronts that are empty. I mean, sometimes there's, store after store after store in certain neighborhoods that are empty. If you were borough president, how would you deal with that?
Sure. My dad was a small business owner, and I know deeply what it looks like to be a family that relies on that small business being successful. And certainly the landscape has changed over the years with retail and other things taking over.
With so many people relying on internet purchases, how do you fill those storefronts?
Well, number one is we need to get foot traffic at all times. Public safety is always part of this equation. Transportation is always part of the equation. We need foot traffic in our corridors so people are actually shopping at those businesses and to be encouraging people to be there. That's always part of the equation, is making sure people are walking through our neighborhoods and feel safe and comfortable doing that. Getting them around town much easier is certainly part of that. And we're going to have to look at innovative strategies. We might have to use our land use and zoning tools inside the borough president's office when we're doing new development to look for making sure we have ground floor and other retail that is small business.
How do you convince people that they can move into the ground floor and make a go of it, since so many people since COVID have come to rely on internet purchases?
Well, look, we do see an industry that's booming, though. And one of the best businesses that's filling up our storefronts right now is our hospitality, our restaurants. We have restaurants that are actually doing very well right now. And that's actually one of the best drivers of filling up storefronts right now. So we should lean in on that. We should make it easier.
More restaurants.
Well, I always want more restaurants. I'm a New Yorker. But more importantly, make it easier to open a restaurant or a small business. Why does it take a year to get a liquor license? Why does the Department of Building take months to come and inspect it? Why does the Department of Health and Fire Department come and take months to sort this out? What if in the borough president's office we had one-stop shopping for you to come in and get all your permits lined up and sorted out, and we could actually get a small business open in half the time, maybe even more? And if you did that, you'd fill your storefronts up and you'd save a lot of money.
So we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But up next, the boys are back to dissect the maelstrom of political news that has been taking our world by storm. We're here with New York City Councilman Keith Powers, who wants to be the next Manhattan Borough President. So let's get to know you. So are you a morning person or a night owl?
I'm both these days. I'm up early at 6 a.m. having my coffee and catching up on the news and getting ready for the day, and running around this whole borough, getting to see all the great neighborhoods and campaigns. So a little bit of both, but I pride myself on being a little bit more of a morning person to get the day started and to get a fresh start to the day.
Who's the smartest person you know?
Oh. Well, I don't, there's so many smart people that I rely on in this job, but I always, at the end of the day, I have a great relationship with my family, my parents, and they're the ones that when I really need to know what to do here, they're amongst the people that I talk to, and my family are the people I rely on to really know when I should be leaning in on issues.
So what's the worst date that you can remember? Now, don't tell me who it is,
Yeah.
but tell me what made it memorable for the fact that you hated it.
Oh, man. This is New York City. It's a wild west out there. I don't know if I can think about the worst one, but I can say that obviously in this life you get to do little of it sometimes. But I don't know. I have to think about that.
So in a media post, you said it's time to be unconventional, your word, in responding to President Trump's recent things, including international actions. So what unconventional ideas do you have that you think New York should be doing?
Well, the idea that I actually was proposing in that post was that New York, California, you name all the states that still want to uphold our international goals to be part of our health agreements and our climate agreements, that we actually figure a way to band together and figure out if we can still participate in those, share their goals, and fund them.
Well, could New York State or California enter into one of these compacts without the support of the president?
It would have to take some creative ways to figure this out, but we have Mayor Bloomberg and the Bloomberg Philanthropies are still funding some of our commitments to those, which is great. I think the states should start thinking about ways to work together. But the whole point here is the playbook is sort of out the window. We have a totally different new world that we're living in, and I think we have to think that way. We have to think that the rules and norms, unfortunately, I want them to stay, but many of them are out the window, and we have to start really thinking about how to stand up for ourselves. And all our positions in government have to be ready to take on the Trump administration and their harm.
But see, here's the interesting question. The Trump administration has clearly thrown out the government playbook. They're playing by their own ideas, and they're doing it, and they don't care what anybody in New York says. So how does New York come back? How do the Democrats in New York come back and deal with that, since it's a playbook they don't know and didn't expect to have to deal with?
Yeah, we're going to still have to use all the tools in our toolbox. That includes legal plans and legal strategies, banding together with like-minded states and leaders so that we can build political power across the nation to fight against that agenda, cooperate and use resources together. And locally, we're going to have to figure out strategies to protect ourselves against budget cuts or taking away of rights. We saw that last time when the Supreme Court took away a woman's right to choose. We as states had to step up and provide resources and figure out ways to continue to protect people that were coming into harm. It's everything right now, and we all have to think creatively and unconventionally to combat that.
So, there's been a lot of protests in the city over the last weeks and months. Do you think protests are effective?
There's always a place for protest in the city, of course, but right now what we need, particularly when it comes to Trump, is using the tools in our actual toolbox to stand up and fight back and to protect people that might come in harm's way. There's always a right for, of course, people to express themselves in the city, but when it goes too far, we have to call that out and speak out on it.
Have you ever protested?
I have protested, but in my government role, I'm mostly focused on ways that I can actually use the power and the tools that I have.
So what's the last thing you protested?
For labor rights, to make sure we're standing up for, speaking for workers here in the city.
So if you had to make a choice, spin class or yoga?
Oh, yoga. I tried yoga during COVID. I don't know that I was good at it, but I would probably go with yoga.
You like yoga?
I feel like I'm getting older, and I feel like I need that flexibility.
Downward dog.
There you go, yeah.
So New York is always changing, and things are opening and closing. What are some of the places that you've loved and that don't exist anymore? So
many neighborhood restaurants that I live in Stuyvesant Town and near Gramercy Park. So many different places that have closed. My dad's restaurant and bar, of course, was one of them where I used to work. And that was when I got my first job, both washing tables and bussing and waiting tables. So, of course, that would be my one. But we still have so much. And to your point, we have to continue to protect our small businesses and storefronts, because the point of living in New York is to be able to enjoy the great things about it. So last question. You were born and raised in Stuytown. You've still stayed there. How come? It's the greatest neighborhood in the city in my eyes. I grew up in Peter Cooper. I live in Stuytown now. I'm a third-generation resident. 4 generations have lived there. We have a great neighborhood. It's safe. We have great schools. We have great amenities. And it's a place, I feel like it's places in New York City we still can really feel the community and feel them support you. And I've been overwhelmed in this campaign of having support of so many of my neighbors. So it's like a neighborhood. It's a real neighborhood. You know people. They know you. When I was first running in 2017, I was knocking on the doors of my teachers and my friends and my parents and my Little League coaches. That's the kind of neighborhood it is, and we still have so much of that. And it's a place where you can really walk around the neighborhood and see each other. And I aspire to have so many more neighborhoods in this city that are just like that.
You played Little League?
I did. I was pitcher and second baseman.
You were a pitcher?
I was.
How were you? Were you good?
I was okay. I was pretty good. I was pretty good.
What, do you have a fastball? Or
I was young, but I had a
knuckleball?
fastball. I tried a knuckleball once, and it didn't go so well. But my dad was my coach, and we won a couple championships, so not too bad. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe we can play softball and you can show me your fastball.
I'm in.
Okay, thanks again for joining me, and thank you at home for joining me as well.